Welcome to Community Updates. I'm Victoria Strait.
And I'm Emmanuel Ortiz.
It's the start of everyone's favorite season, tax season. Luckily, Conant Public Library has tax forms for you. For delivery in Sterling or curbside pickup, you can give them a call at 978-422-6409 between 10 and 6, Monday through Thursday. Sterling and Lancaster have started selling dog licenses for the year. All dogs must be registered. There are some exceptions to paying the registration fee, but they still need to be registered nonetheless. You can register your dogs online through your corresponding town's website or by mailing in the form to your town clerk. Also, don't forget that your registration will be rejected if you do not include a copy of your dog's up-to-date rabies vaccine. Sterling, your due date is going to be on April 15th, and Lancaster, yours is going to be on March 31st. If you have any questions, please contact your town clerk. Emmanuel, let's hear what we have going on in Lancaster for events.
On February 25th, Dare Memorial Library will be hosting a film discussion for adults about the film The Public. The discussion will be held by Zoom between 6:30 and 8 p.m. Watch the film, then register by visiting darememoriallibrary.org or emailing Karen at ksilverthorne@lancasterma.net. Sea starting lessons will be on February 18th and 19th, in person and via Zoom as part of the Get Dirty Gardening Project. Some supplies are included thanks to the Friends of Lancaster Seniors. To get Zoom information, please call the Senior Center at 978-733-4076.
On Wednesday, February 17th at 10:30 a.m. via Zoom, the Conant Public Library will be holding a Kids Cook event. Young chefs grade 3 and up will pick a recipe from the Big Fun Kids Cookbook by Food Network and prepare the recipe for the virtual meeting. To register for this event, please call Conant Public Library Monday through Thursday between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. at 978-422-6409. Travel to Xi'an Bell Tower in China without ever having to leave your living room. Sterling Senior Center is sponsoring an armchair travel event hosted by Bill Iotti via Zoom on February 19th from 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. No passports required. For more information, please call Sterling Senior Center at 978-422-3032. And now we head over to Lex, who's chatting with State Rep Meg Kilcoyne.
Thanks, Victoria and Emmanuel, for the nice introduction. I am pleased to have here with me again. I wish I could say have here in the studio because I haven't actually seen her in person since I think about June, but I've got our 12th District Worcester Representative Meg Kilcoyne, who is with us this morning. And well, first of all, welcome, Meg, and thank you for taking time out of what I know is an incredibly busy schedule to spend a few minutes with me. Oh. And of course, Meg was just sworn in a few weeks ago. So let's start with that experience, Meg. First of all, just tell us, what was that like?
Yeah, Lex, I think that's a great place to start. And thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you virtually. And, you know, with COVID, you don't get a lot of opportunities to kind of speak to a large audience anymore. So I'm really excited that we've been able to kind of find these ways to have these conversations with Zoom and technology. But you know, it feels like almost a lifetime ago, but January 6th, I was sworn in, and it really was an incredible experience. You know, having gone through a campaign that lasted for months, both a primary and a general, and then, you know, putting that effort into it, you put a lot of yourself out there, and you meet a lot of incredible people. And, you know, election night, you definitely feel that sense of accomplishment but it didn't quite hit me, you know, because the thing is that was kind of unique about my situation is that, you know, we still had work to do for my predecessor, Rep. Naughton, that we had to finish. So I had taken a leave of absence for several months actually to campaign because I couldn't balance both. But then, you know, once that was over, I went right back to work because we really did have priorities that needed to get done that we still had to work on. So it was good. It was, and I don't regret that at all. I'm not saying that to sort of, you know, in any sort of complaint. And in fact, it was actually, I think, great for me to be able to have that ability to kind of keep working on these important issues before taking over. But I think it did create this sense of where, you know, you didn't have that real sense of closure on one chapter and the opening of a new one. And so, and especially where session this year went right until the end of the wire, there wasn't a lot of breathing room to really kind of reassess and regroup and get ready for the next legislative session. So, I was working up until the night before I was sworn in as a staffer. And then I got up the next morning and drove into Boston to be sworn in as the representative. And, I'm really very so grateful for Speaker Mariano for being able to figure out a way to do it in the chamber, because, for me, one of the things I campaigned on is the experience I have in the State House, and the work that I did in that building. So I drove into Boston. Couldn't bring any friends or family, so I brought little pictures of my family to kind of have in my pocket, so they were there with me. And I was walking into the building with some of my new colleagues, my other freshman legislators, and some of them had never been in the State House before, and they all kind of were having this sense of, it was hitting them that this moment was happening, that this had truly happened. They really got elected to the Massachusetts House of Representatives. But for me, I wasn't there yet, because these were halls that I'd walked so many times before. But then as we went up to the grand staircase, we got to go into the chamber. And for those who don't know, the House chamber, there are, it's kind of almost a sacred place in some ways. Staff are not allowed to walk on the floor. So I'd never been able to walk on the House floor at all. It's only for representatives when they're conducting business. There's occasional times where support staff will be able to sort of stand on the side to help legislators if they're debating, complex policy. But for the most part, you cannot go on there. So I walked up to the grand staircase and I went onto the House floor, and the court officer, who are they're kind of the security for the House floor and the Senate has their own Senate court officers as well, just greeted me and said, "Hello, Representative," and handed me, the little state representative pin. And I looked up and I saw my name on the wall, with all the other legislators, and it truly hit me that, that this moment had happened, and that this was the last year, all of it that went into it all kind of came to this moment, and I got all really emotional.
Yeah. And I love your image of that you were a staffer right up until the day before you were sworn in. And then, you woke up the next morning and you were Representative Meg Kilcoyne. And I think that's just a wonderful image. And that's just fantastic. So I know that you have hit the ground running. What are some of the things that you are working on that are really at the top of the list right now?
Yeah. So, like you said, it was a whirlwind. It was really the first day after we were sworn in, the work had kind of already started.
Sure.
Even before I was sworn in. And one thing I'm very fortunate is that my legislative aide, I took on Josh Duhamel, who also worked for Representative Naughton in constituent services. And I give him so much credit because he literally took constituent casework that Representative Naughton had, and we were able to transfer it pretty seamlessly into our office. So There wasn't a situation where people had to sort of figure out who to call, or their cases were sort of in limbo. So we were able to kind of transfer all of those over. And then, it's been a pretty intense time, in that one of the things that happened that I think is on the minds of many is the vaccine rollout and confusion about what's going on there, just the logistics and just the information that's being out there. So our office has been fielding a lot of inquiries and calls about, what's been going on, questions about how the phases are organized and how they're prioritized. And so we've been doing our best to both provide as much accurate information as we can, but also at times push the administration to make sure that, we're adequately being served. We have an interest. The legislative branch and the executive branch are two different branches of government for a reason. And, with situations like that, I want to obviously, acknowledge the complexities that go into a project of this magnitude. But we also have to find that balance is when it's appropriate to support the administration's efforts and acknowledge the hard work they're doing, which many are working incredibly hard. I don't dispute that. But also when we have to push and make sure that the administration knows what we're hearing on the ground from our communities. So what I've been working on the last few weeks is just getting, having conversations despite COVID, so a lot of these have been via Zooms, but conversations with our regional delegation, both in the House and Senate, really trying to prioritize the needs of Central Massachusetts. I'm sure many of you saw when mass vaccination sites were first announced, there was a glaring hole right in the middle of the state where there was nothing. And I think that caused a lot of concern, and we were concerned as legislators. So I joined a lot of the other area Senate, Senate members and House members to try to, convey to the administration that, this isn't acceptable. We have to make sure that all of our residents in the Commonwealth have access to these sites. I heard anecdotally from people around here who were going all the way to Gillette, and I've heard great things about the way they're running it, but for somebody that's over 75, driving an hour to get a vaccine that requires 2 doses is a lot to ask.
It really is, especially with the kind of winter that we have suddenly had here. That we're just inundated with snow. Now, I know that here in Sterling, they had a very successful vaccination clinic at the senior center. Do you think that that's going to happen in other communities as well?
I hope so. So, I want to make clear too that when we talk about advocacy, especially with something that's ongoing, that is very fluid, it's important, in my opinion, to make sure that you're sort of approaching it from all levels. So the mass vaccination sites are one component of the conversation, but I think Sterling is a great example that our local municipalities, our local boards of health, they're equipped and ready to go and able to do this. And so one of the things I know I've been trying to raise and work with other colleagues of raising awareness, especially to the administration, in that, we have to make sure we're giving our local municipalities support to be able to administer these vaccines if they can. And I think Sterling's a great example of, if they get the doses, being able to do the work. And I think that not just Sterling, but many other communities are sort of having a similar experience where they're able to really target the people that need it the most.
Right.
And make sure that they're getting everybody in, that there's not a lot of confusion, and the comfort of being able to go to your own town, to go 5 minutes down the road is huge. Within our district alone, Northborough had a similar clinic they ran at the senior center, and I got to see a lot of the work they were doing, and it was really, really impressive the way that they were able to handle a large volume of people quickly and get them in and out. And it's a matter of getting the vaccines in their hands. So, one thing I definitely want to prioritize is that, well, yes, I'm glad there's a mass vaccination site that's going to go in our region, but when we're talking about how these vaccine doses are being allocated, we cannot neglect our local municipalities that are demonstrating to us time and again that they are equipped to do this if they have the doses to do it.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that between the advocacy that you can do and then the proactivity of the individual communities, this is really how this gets done.
Definitely. And I think too, I represent 6 towns, so I'm not able to necessarily have the intimate knowledge of how the logistics work out in each individual community.
Sure.
But one thing that helps me be a better advocate is seeing the work that Sterling has done, seeing the work that Northborough has done, and talking to my other towns and what they are capable of if they're able to kind of get, several, have sites or things like that. And that allows me to then convey to Secretary Sutters and to other members of the administration that are in charge of these things that I'm talking to, my towns here and they can do it. Right. Where's the doses? And that's kind of what it's about is hearing what's happening on the ground and being a conduit to the decisions that are being made in Boston and even further. I mean, the federal government's also involved too. So, it's constant communication and just making
and
sure
happening
that
on many levels.
Right. Exactly.
State and federal. Yeah. Well, it sounds like that's taking up an enormous amount of your time. Anything else right now that you're, and while we're talking about this as well, of course, we're now in Black History Month. We're coming up to Women's History Month and whatnot. And I know that these are issues that are important to you too. How are some of your initiatives, are they tying into those themes?
Those are great questions. I'm really glad you brought up both Women's History and Black History Month, because I think that it's where we are in such a unique circumstance and situation. It's too easy to lose sight of some of the long-term issues that we have to continue to prioritize and work on. So while obviously the COVID-19 has taken up a large amount of time for our office, we're still looking at other pieces of policy and legislation that we can support that does kind of speak to those issues that you're talking about. In terms of Black history, it's obviously something that we should work on acknowledging all year long, but I do think it's an appropriate time to really reassess and recommit to where it is, what we're doing to work on racial equity in this country. We saw so many demonstrations in our community and across the state, across the country, of people really acknowledging that, we have problems that we have to fix. And there's a lot of talk about police reform last session, but that's really only one component of it. And so I think that as we begin this session, we've already seen a commitment from Speaker Mariano and House and Senate leadership to really prioritize these. There's actually, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, it was reported that the Speaker and the Senate President announced the formation of 3 new standing committees, which is a big deal. We haven't seen new committees created. I think the last one was the Cannabis Control Committee that was created with the legalization of marijuana, but that was kind of forced because of the ballot question. In my time at the State House, I've never seen the creation of 3 at once, nor have I ever seen them that have kind of really taken a proactive step to address these. And one of those committees, one is, COVID management. So that kind of goes to what we were speaking to before. And another one is a committee on racial equity. And so what this committee, we'll learn a little bit more as we go in the session, sort of what this committee will do and how it functions. But it demonstrates that it's going to be a goal of the House and Senate to really start looking at policy through the lens of racial equity, and to make sure that the policies we're voting on is really going to be able to, we'll learn more about the effect of legislation, how it's going to impact equity in our Commonwealth, or policies that maybe are needed to close that gap. So I'm really excited to see what those will do. For me, as a freshman legislator and as a white woman, I think it's really important to look to leaders in the House and Senate that really experience this, have a far better understanding of the experience of people of color than I would. And so the Black and Latino caucus, that is a caucus in the legislature that's made up of legislators of color, and they have been incredible leaders on these issues. So for me, it's about seeing what I can do to support their work, and then make sure that, going forward, we really take time to tackle this issue with the seriousness that it deserves.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've got your hands full with issues. And as I said to you when I first interviewed you, I think that was, before you were, before the swearing in, well, it was before then, but, I'd love to have you back every few weeks just to update our viewers on what you're working on how this impacts the communities. And, the work that you're doing is tremendous. And I certainly want our viewers to know about that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do that. And one thing too, I just note quickly before we go, you mentioned women's history as well.
Yeah.
And I was really excited that I was actually chosen to serve as the first year representative on the board of directors for the Women's Caucus, which is
congratulations.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. It's the Women's Caucus in the legislature. It's bipartisan, bicameral, so it's made up of House, Senate members of all parties, and they do incredible work trying to promote policies that are going to encourage more women in government and lift up women in Massachusetts. So I'm excited to lend my voice and serve on that board and do whatever I can to promote that work too. So that's
Marvelous.
exciting developments. Yeah.
Lots and lots of firsts for you. So I can imagine just the amount of time that you're needing to spend just to get yourself briefed and to really be able to make those differences. You have to know the issues, and I know the amount of work that goes into that. So all the best to you. And Meg, we'll look forward to hearing from you again in the next few weeks.
Thank you so much, Lex. I look forward to it.
On my bookshelf, my recommendation for this week is Children of Blood and Bone, Legacy of Orisha, Book 1 by Tomi Adeyemi. If you are tired of the same type of Tolkien and C.S. Lewis stories and you're looking for a new epic, something addictive, a new fantasy series, then this book is for you. The Children of Blood and Bone is influenced by Adeyemi's West African heritage, and in it she blends in religious deities like the Orisha and a diverse landscape. The Children of Blood and Bone is told from multiple points of view as Inan and Amari, children of the Iron-Fisted King, and Zili and Zayn, siblings who have suffered greatly under the king's regime, find themselves on a dark, magic-filled quest for power. Their journey is accompanied by violence and betrayal, but friendship and even star-crossed love also play a part. Enriched with themes that resonate in today's social and political landscape, The Children of Blood and Bone takes on injustice, discrimination, and a struggle for change. Plus, it's filled with great action scenes and thrills. To get your copy, check out your local library or local bookstores.
Today, we have the very cute and energetic Brody to share with you. He's a 6-month-old terrier mix who loves to run and he loves to chew. He is still a puppy, so he will need a home that has time to put into training him. Brody is very strong and loves jumping, so a home with adults only would be best for him. If you are interested in Brody, please visit sterlingshelter.org to fill out an application. And that's all we have time for this episode.
We'll see you next time on Community Updates.